How's it going, everybody? My name is Alex Taboo, and I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to review the movie Joker. Now, this is a very important movie because it's starting a lot of conversations and it's garnered a lot of outrage, which I don't think is necessarily just. However, I think that's a good place to start, and we can build from there. Now, this movie follows Arthur Fleck, who is a mentally ill loner and this basically social outcast long before he becomes a Joker. And it really builds upon his character, and it almost it does make you feel sorry for this guy, but at the same time you see him like delving into the darker parts of his psyche. And this movie is, I think it's wrongfully classified because it's being talked about as though it's a comic book movie, and there is a very little bit of comic book lore that finds itself in this movie. This is more of a dark psychological drama and a very interesting character study. And it really shows you this character who is mentally ill but has the best intentions, but I mean, he keeps getting kicked while he's down, and then he plunges deeper and deeper into the darker parts of his psyche. And there are parts where he does bad things, and it's like there's almost positive reinforcement to it, and it kind of builds that part of his character and his personality. And honestly, I think that's very important to look at. It's a very important thing to think about, because this is a film that is criticizing society and the way that we as society treat mentally ill people. And I think we can stand to learn something from what this film is showing us, because it is very easy for us to look at this character and say, that's the bad guy. And he is the bad guy. He's a horrible, horrible human being, if you can call him that. However, I think there is a lot to be said about the things that influence his character and make him appreciate his wrongdoings, his evils. I think there's something that we should pay attention to and work on doing things differently and treating people differently. So I don't know if it's just me forcing a positive out of this piece of cinema, but I did feel that way when I was watching the movie. It is very uncomfortable. That is something I must impress upon you. This is a super uncomfortable movie. I put this in the class with like 12 Years a Slave, where it's like it's a fantastic piece of cinema that I need to see once. And that is just because it takes a lot. It's gut-wrenching at times. Now, I will say, I must speak on the complaints of the excessive violence. This is actually not a violent movie. This movie has probably less than a total of 5 minutes of violence in it, and that's mostly a riot being depicted. But I will say that it's unapologetic when it's violent, and I mean, it pulls no punches, and it can be gut-wrenching. I mean, it can hurt at the sight of it. I mean, there is so much that goes on, and it's like it's not about the physical violence, it's about the emotional and psychological torture. And I think that is much more, I don't want to say harmful, I don't want to say the movie is harmful, but that is much more taxing when you watch that sort of thing. So, if you are going to see this, I recommend you go into it with an open mind. Just know that there's not necessarily a good to balance the evil. This is more of a character study, and it's going to take you into the mind of a psychopath. So that's kind of hard to watch at times. I have a little bit of difficulty watching things like that myself. And honestly, I think if you don't feel that you are ready to partake in something like this, then you don't have to go see the movie. But don't run some crusade against it just because a few other people had difficulty watching it or struggle with the concept or the idea. To be perfectly honest with you, I came out of that movie and I was thinking like they should make you bring a note from your therapist, because there's a lot that goes on in this movie. And I guess I'll transition from that into my critique of not critique. I mean, I think it's a fantastic movie. I think this was a phenomenal piece of cinema. It was beautifully directed. The color palette matches the mood. It's a really immersive experience. It takes you to Gotham City at some point in the past. The cinematography is great. It is phenomenally acted. Joaquin Phoenix may rival Heath Ledger. I will say they're very different depictions. And these films, the film Joker versus The Dark Knight, are two completely different films. And I would say The Dark Knight was a magnificent Batman film. This I would not classify as a Batman film because, I mean, there's really no Batman, and it really doesn't. There's very little that ties it to the comic book universe except for this one character, who is the Joker, who is the Batman villain. However, if you could have changed a few things, and this most likely would have been a completely different movie separate from DC. It wasn't immersing you so much in that universe as it was its own standalone film. So keep that in mind when you watch this. I will say it was a lot to handle. It was a lot to experience, but in the end, it was a great piece of cinema. And Joaquin Phoenix is the Joker. I really wish this wasn't a standalone because I think he did a phenomenal job, and I would like to see him go toe to toe with Batman. However, there are certain things in there which like kind of make the timelines not match up. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna end it. If I had to give a score, I would give Joker a 90-something%, probably a 95. I personally would have liked to see more action, and I guess like see him be like more crime boss Joker than psychopath Joker, and I would like to see where those connect. But then again, I mean, given the way that this movie is made, there is room for a sequel. So let me know in the comments below if what you thought of this movie, if you saw it, if you sat through the whole thing. Also like and subscribe, and I may do a few more of these videos. All right, thanks guys, take care. I have to respond to a lot of the criticism that the Joker has gotten in recent years. Jared Leto, people have been really harsh on Jared Leto's depiction of the Joker, and I think that was very unfortunate because I think he did a good job. It was just he was a well-acted character in a not so great movie, and I think I would love to see him get an opportunity for redemption, but I don't know that he's going to get that because it sounds like he wasn't too pleased with the studio, as well as the reception that Suicide Squad got was just not positive at all. So I really do hope he comes back and does it again. Honestly, I was a huge fan of Ben Affleck as Batman. As Bruce Wayne, his Bruce Wayne was probably the best that we've seen on screen. Although I will say I do believe that Christian Bale is a far superior actor because Christian Bale is amazing. Although a bit crazy, but amazing. And I really would like to see a lot of these actors and depictions get an opportunity for redemption, especially after seeing what works and what doesn't.